Welcome to Relation Tales. Please like this video and subscribe Relation Tales. We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. There was a time my mornings began with laughter and coffee, not suspicion and silence. Melissa used to hum, while making breakfast, some soft tune from the radio that made even Mondays feel lighter. I'd walk into the kitchen, kiss her cheek, and she'd grin without looking up. "You smell like sawdust again, Daniel," she'd tease. I work construction, long hours, rough hands, steady pay. She liked the stability. Or so I thought. Our life wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. Friday movie nights, Saturday morning jogs, and Sunday brunch at that small diner off Maple Street. For years, I thought we were happy. Until one evening, I noticed her hum had stopped. It began small, forgotten texts, late nights at work, a phone always face down on the counter. I told myself it was stress, that she was tired of the same routine. I even blamed myself for not buying her that vacation she kept hinting at. But deep down, a shadow had already crept into our marriage, quiet, cold, and patient. Melissa became a stranger in silk. She'd dress up for client dinners, but I couldn't remember the last time she dressed up for me. She'd smile at her phone, whisper things like, "You're impossible," and then laugh in a way she hadn't laughed with me in months. At night, she'd slide into bed smelling faintly of a cologne I didn't own. And when I'd reach for her, she'd mumble, "I'm exhausted," turning away before I could even say goodnight. I tried to talk to her, more than once. "Melissa, are we okay?" I asked one morning as she fixed her makeup in the mirror. She didn't meet my eyes. "You're overthinking again, Daniel. Not everything's a crisis." Overthinking. That word echoed in my head for days. It wasn't paranoia. It was instinct, the kind that tightens your chest before a storm hits. One Friday evening, I decided to surprise her at her office with dinner. I waited in the parking lot as the building lights dimmed, one by one. Her car was still there at 10 p.m., but when I called her, she didn't answer. 20 minutes later, she finally picked up. "Sorry, babe, still at work. Big project. Might stay late tonight," she said, her tone mechanical. Through the phone, I heard something, a faint thump, laughter, a man's voice. I said nothing, just whispered, "Okay, be safe." That night, I sat alone on the couch, a plate of cold takeout beside me. My chest burned, but not from anger, from realization. The truth doesn't need proof. It announces itself in silence, in distance, in the way someone stops looking at you when they used to. Days passed. Her lies grew bolder, smoother. She started locking her phone, guarding it like a secret diary. I stopped asking questions, not because I didn't care, but because I was waiting for her to give me the answer herself. Then came that night, past midnight, rain tapping the window, an ache in my chest I couldn't sleep through. My gut told me to call her. Maybe I just needed to hear her voice, to convince myself I was wrong. The line rang twice. A man's voice answered, tired, drunk, careless. "She's in the shower, man," he slurred. And then, her laughter. Soft. Familiar. Cruel. I didn't scream. I didn't demand answers. My voice came out calm, almost gentle. "Tell her she doesn't have to hurry. The locks are changed." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush me. Then, the call ended, and so did something inside me. I sat there in the dark, phone still in my hand, realizing that love doesn't die loudly. It fades, one unanswered call at a time. But what Melissa didn't know was that her betrayal wouldn't end with heartbreak. It would end with me, calmly, quietly, dismantling the illusion she'd built around herself. Because when someone burns your life down, you don't rebuild the same house. You build something stronger on the ashes. The next morning, sunlight bled through the blinds like nothing had happened. But everything had changed. The air in that house felt different, thicker, heavier, tainted by her absence and the ghost of laughter that wasn't mine to share anymore. I brewed my coffee slowly, staring at the steam curling above the mug. It was almost poetic how quiet it felt. I'd lived through arguments, slammed doors, tears, but never this kind of silence. It was peace wrapped around fury, control hiding the kind of pain that could hollow a man out. When Melissa finally came home that afternoon, she had that rehearsed exhaustion on her face, the kind she wore when she wanted to be pitted, not questioned. Her hair was damp, and her perfume clung to her like a confession. "Oh, you're up early," she said, forcing a smile as she dropped her purse on the table. I smiled back calm. "Didn't sleep much." She hesitated, sensing something in my tone, then busied herself with the groceries she hadn't bought. She talked about her project, about how her boss was demanding, about everything except the truth. I let her talk. Lies sound better when you let them echo in their own emptiness. When she finally paused, I said softly, "Melissa, do you ever feel guilty?" Her hands froze midair. "Guilty? For what?" "For wasting what we built," I said, watching her reaction. "For throwing away something real." She blinked fast. "Daniel, what are you talking about?" I stepped closer, close enough to smell that faint cologne again. "You know exactly what I'm talking about." Her throat tightened. She looked everywhere but at me. Then came the act, the defensive laugh, the feigned outrage. "You're being paranoid again," she snapped. "This constant suspicion is exhausting." I didn't respond. I just walked past her, leaving a small envelope on the counter. "You'll need that," I said. She frowned, unfolding it. Inside was her new apartment key, rented under her name, paid in full by me. Along with it, a copy of the lease termination for our house. "What is this?" she whispered. "Your new start," I replied. "You wanted freedom. I'm giving it to you." Her eyes glistened, the mask beginning to crack. "Daniel, you're overreacting." "It's not." "Don't," I said sharply, my voice firm but quiet. "Don't insult me with another lie." I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just looked at her the way a man looks at the ruins of something he once cherished. Her lips trembled, but I could see it. There was no remorse, only fear of losing comfort. That's when I knew exactly how to hurt her, not through anger, but through absence. Over the next few days, I moved with precision. I didn't block her number. I wanted her to see every change. The car in her name? Gone, sold. The joint account? Frozen. The house she adored? Listed. I even called her best friend, Amber, the one she always claimed to have girls' nights with, and invited her for coffee. She looked nervous, fidgeting with her ring as I placed my phone on the table and hit play. From a speaker came that same man's voice, the recording from the night he'd answered my call. The laughter, the arrogance, the truth. Amber's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God, Daniel, she told me it wasn't true." "I know," I interrupted softly, "but she'll tell you more lies soon. Just don't believe any of them." Amber nodded, her guilt clear. "She's been different for months, posting those fake work trips." I smiled faintly. "Not anymore." Melissa's world began to crumble quietly. Her friends drifted away when the truth started leaking out. Her business partner, the man from that call, stopped answering her texts once I emailed him the hotel security footage I'd pulled through a contact who owed me a favor. It wasn't illegal. It was documentation, proof that karma doesn't need to be loud. When she finally called me, her voice was shaking. "Daniel, can we talk? Please. I made a mistake." "A mistake," I repeated, leaning back in my chair. "Mistakes are when you forget an anniversary. You didn't forget. You replaced." She tried to sound remorseful, but guilt isn't something you can fake twice. "I thought we were falling apart," she said softly. "You were distant, working too much." I cut her off. "And instead of fixing us, you looked for attention in someone else's mirror." Silence stretched between us. Then she asked, brokenly, "Is there any way to fix this?" I paused, pretending to think. "No, but there is a way to end it with grace. Sign the papers I sent. You'll keep your dignity, and I'll keep my peace." Her voice cracked. "You can't mean that." "I already changed the locks," I said quietly. "The night you called me from his arms." There was no response, just the sound of her trying not to cry before hanging up. That night, I walked through the house for the last time. The walls still carried memories of laughter, warmth, and love that used to mean something. But I felt nothing now, just clarity. It's strange how betrayal doesn't always break you. Sometimes it rebuilds you. I stood by the window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance, and whispered to myself, "Thank you for teaching me what peace costs." Then I turned off the lights and closed the door, for good. 3 weeks passed. Not a word from Melissa. Not a knock. Not a text. Not a desperate voicemail begging for forgiveness. Just silence. And yet, her absence echoed louder than any fight we'd ever had. I moved into a small apartment downtown. Nothing fancy, just quiet. It had a view of the river and an old brick wall that reminded me of the construction sites where I used to spend most of my days. It felt grounding, real, something I could rebuild from. The first week was strange. I'd wake up expecting to hear her footsteps, her perfume lingering in the hallway, her half-finished coffee on the counter. Instead, I woke to the steady hum of peace, a sound I hadn't realized I'd been missing for years. But peace didn't erase memories. Some nights, I find myself staring at our old wedding photos, wondering when exactly love had stopped being enough. Maybe it wasn't sudden. Maybe it died slowly, between missed dinners and phone calls she never answered. Still, I wasn't bitter. Not anymore. I wasn't out for blood. I was out for truth and closure. That closure came unexpectedly one afternoon. I was at a local diner grabbing lunch when Amber, the same friend who'd once helped Melissa lie, walked in. She spotted me and hesitated, as if deciding whether she should approach. Finally, she did. "Daniel," she said softly, sliding into the seat across from me. "You probably don't want to see me. I don't hold grudges," I said, sipping my coffee. "Just lessons." Her eyes softened. "She's not doing well." I raised an eyebrow but stayed quiet. "She moved in with that guy for a while," Amber continued, lowering her voice. "But he left her. Word got around about the hotel footage, and she lost her job too. It's bad, Daniel. She's been calling me nonstop, crying, saying she doesn't know how it all fell apart." For a long moment, I said nothing. Not because I didn't care, but because I cared too much once, and it nearly destroyed me. Amber sighed. She said she wants to see you. Just once. I looked out the window, the afternoon sun spilling across the table. What would that change? Maybe nothing, she whispered. Maybe everything. 2 days later, she showed up at my work site. She looked different. Not glamorous, not confident, just human again. Her eyes were swollen, her voice softer than I remembered. "Daniel," she said, almost a whisper. "Can we talk?" I nodded toward a bench near the fence. We sat in silence for a minute before she spoke again. "I messed up," she began, voice trembling. "You were good to me, better than I deserved. And I threw it away for attention, for feeling wanted again. I thought I needed excitement, but I was just chasing emptiness." I studied her face, the guilt written in every line. "Then why didn't you stop?" She blinked hard, tears forming. "Because I was scared of being ordinary. You were steady, Daniel, but I wanted something more. And now, I'd give anything for ordinary again." For a long time, I didn't respond. I just watched her unravel in front of me. Every tear a piece of truth I'd waited months to hear. Then I said quietly, "You didn't just betray me, Melissa. You betrayed the version of yourself that once believed in us." Her lips parted as if to speak, but I held up a hand. "I'm not here to humiliate you," I continued. "I'm here because closure deserves honesty. You chose your path, and I chose mine. I'm not angry anymore. I just don't recognize the woman who used to make me believe in forever." Her voice cracked. "So that's it." I nodded. "That's it." She covered her face with her hands, sobbing quietly. People nearby pretended not to notice. I waited until she calmed down before standing. "You'll find your way," I said gently. "Just not through me." And with that, I walked away. That night, I sat by the river, the water reflecting city lights that shimmered like tiny promises. I thought about how strange life is, how something that once felt permanent can vanish overnight. But I wasn't empty. I felt lighter. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through old messages from her, half apologies, half excuses, then deleted them all. For the first time, it didn't hurt. It felt like finally exhaling after holding my breath for years. Later, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Melissa. It read, "I hope you find someone who loves you right. I'm sorry I wasn't that person." I stared at the message for a moment, then typed back, "I already did. I found peace." Then I deleted her number too. Weeks turned into months. The divorce was finalized without drama. She moved out of state. I stayed. I started working for a small home renovation company, and soon after, I began teaching apprentices on weekends, something I'd always wanted to do. There was no grand revenge, no public shaming. My revenge was simple, rebuilding a life she no longer had access to. Living well was the quietest, most powerful answer I could give. And every now and then, when I passed that old diner on Maple Street, I remember the sound of her laughter through the phone, the moment everything fell apart. But instead of pain, I feel gratitude. Because that night didn't break me. It rebuilt me into someone stronger, calmer, and finally free. 6 months later, life had settled into a rhythm I never thought I'd enjoy again. The mornings didn't sting anymore. I'd wake up, stretch, and make my coffee with that same calm steadiness that once filled my home. Only now, the peace was real. No lies humming beneath the surface. No fake smiles over breakfast. No sin of deception in the air. I had traded chaos for clarity, and it suited me. Work was good. I'd been promoted as site manager, trusted with bigger projects, mentoring younger guys who reminded me of who I used to be, hopeful, honest, still believing that life played fair. They often asked me for advice about relationships, about trust, about balance. I'd just smile and say, don't give everything to someone who wouldn't do the same. In the evenings, I'd sometimes sit by the river where the city lights danced on the water and watch the sunset alone. Not lonely, just whole. I'd think back on that night, the call, the voice, the laughter, the locks changing, and realize it wasn't a tragedy. It was the moment I got my freedom back. A few weeks later, I ran into Amber again. She was happier now, married, expecting a baby. She smiled warmly when she saw me. You look different, Daniel. Lighter. I feel lighter, I said honestly. She hesitated, then added, Melissa asked me to tell you she's moved on too. She found work again, and she's trying to make peace with everything. I nodded. That's good. Everyone deserves another chance to do things right. Amber tilted her head. You really forgave her, didn't you? I thought for a moment, then smiled faintly. I forgave her the day I stopped needing her to say sorry. She smiled, touched my shoulder, and said quietly, You're a better man than most. That night, as I drove home, I stopped by a grocery store I hadn't been to in years. The cashier was a woman named Lena, probably in her late 20s, bright eyes, shy smile. We'd spoken a few times before when I'd stopped by for coffee. She had this calm kindness about her, the kind that didn't need attention to be noticed. When she handed me my change, she said softly, You always seem so calm. Most people come here rushing, snapping at me. You just smile. I chuckled. Calm comes after the storm. She smiled back, intrigued. Then I guess you've seen a few storms. Enough to know that peace isn't luck. It's a decision. She paused, then asked, Would you want to grab a coffee sometime? It caught me off guard. Not because I wasn't ready, but because for the first time, I was. Yeah, I said, returning her smile. I'd like that. Weeks turned into months again, and life, real life, returned. No grand gestures, no perfect love stories. Just two people rebuilding trust one conversation at a time. Lena was nothing like Melissa. She didn't need luxury to feel loved or lies to feel seen. She asked about my day, listened, laughed easily, and never made me feel like I had to prove my worth. And maybe that was the greatest revenge of all, moving on so gracefully that the past couldn't touch me anymore. Sometimes, I get messages from old acquaintances saying they'd seen Melissa somewhere, or that she'd asked about me. I never replied. Not out of anger, but because I didn't need to. Closure isn't found in revenge or forgiveness. It's found in peace. And I have found mine. One night, standing on my balcony, I looked at the city skyline and whispered to myself, You did it. Not because I'd won against her, but because I'd won myself back. That call at midnight, the one that broke me, had also freed me. And as the cool breeze brushed against my face, I realized something. Sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't making them pay. It's making yourself untouchable. It's living a life so quiet, so content, that the past can't even whisper your name anymore.